What is up, Chess YouTube? In today's video, I want to show you one of my latest online blitz games where I absolutely crushed the Four Knights variation of the open games. And by crush, I mean I blew it out of the water. This game was just incredible. All right, in the game, white opens 1e4. I go e5, as I usually do these days. White goes knight f3, knight c6, defends the pawn, and now the main move order for the Four Knights variation is going to be knight c3 and then knight to f6. But instead, in this game, white does go for maybe the strongest move here. That is bishop b5, the good old-fashioned Ruy Lopez opening. Now here, I go knight f6, the Berlin defense, my trusty Berlin, and now the two main moves for white are going to be d3 and short castles. But instead, in this game, white goes knight to c3, supporting the pawn on e4 with the knight. Now, in theory, not a bad move at all, but the problem with this move from white, knight to c3, is black has a tactical solution that effectively equalizes on the spot if he can follow up correctly, and I go for it with the move knight to d4. Now, this move here is incredibly strong. It's actually the strongest move in this position right here. The other good ones being perhaps bishop b4 or bishop d6, but that's a story for another day. In the game, knight d4 played, and what is the idea behind this move? Well, you are forking here the knight on f3 and the bishop on b5, and you're also giving up the pawn on e5 if white wants it. Now, the problem with taking on e5 is after knight takes, black can always go queen to e7 right away, and black actually gets very good compensation for the missing pawn. In fact, black here might actually be a little bit better already on move 5, move 6. So, instead, in the game, white goes for the move short castles. Okay, a logical idea. I go c6, driving back that bishop. Of course, there is nothing wrong with, say, knight takes b5, winning the bishop pair already in the game. But instead, c6, I'm playing more aggressive. We have bishop to d3 here. A decent move. And by the way, real fast, if you want the easiest way to equalize here as black, the main line goes knight takes, c6, knight c3, d6, d4, and then very importantly, queen to c7, supporting e5, and here black is just 1000% equal. You go bishop e7, and short castles and so on, but in the game, I actually got my lines mixed up a little bit. So here, we have castles, c6, drives back the bishop, not a bad idea in principle if I follow up correctly. Now we have bishop d3, and here I make a little bit of mistake. I got my lines mixed up a little bit here. In the game, I went bishop to c5. Now, this move is a little bit weak. The idea is c5 is a fantastic square for the bishop, and there are certain lines in this opening here with knight d4 where this is the right move, but it turns out this right here is not the best way. Instead here, black should probably take on f3. For example, knight takes, queen takes, then bishop e7, and black would be doing just fine as the e5 pawn would not be under attack as, for example, here, obviously there is no knight on f3 targeting that pawn, so black is totally fine. But instead here, bishop c5, not the best idea. White takes the pawn, a good move. I castle my idea, perhaps rook e8, perhaps trying to apply some pressure on the e-file, but again, I got my lines mixed up here, so white is a little bit better out of the opening. Now here, the best move for white is going to be simply knight to f3. You just retreat the knight, pressure the knight on d4, and overall, white is doing just fine. The main line goes, for example, rook e8, h3, d5, and black has some play for the pawn, but overall, white is doing very well. Now, instead, white makes kind of a ridiculous move here, and this move shows why it's so important to understand your opening ideas just like inside and out. Here, he plays the move a3. Now, this move right here is just, it doesn't really do anything at all, and this is not the kind of opening where you want to waste a tempo like this, because black, you know, I'm going to go rook to e8 as I did in the game, and already I'm applying quite a bit of pressure here, and white, he simply cannot afford time to, you know, waste a move like a3. I mean, what is that doing here? I don't know. All right, knight f3. Now here, the best idea for black is going to be d5, opening up the center right away, but instead I go d6. Not the best idea, but all right, it's a game. We have b4 from white, a weird looking move. I guess maybe the idea from white, he's trying to go bishop b2, maybe, perhaps, but even that looks kind of strange to me. Now, bishop b6, and here white makes effectively the final mistake of the game, because after this one move from white, this is where things just get incredibly bad for him very fast. He plays the move rook to e1. Now, at first glance, rook e1 makes some sense. I mean, the rook basically always goes to e1 in the open games. White frees up f1 for the bishop. If he can get that in, then d3 is possible. Then bishop g5. And then white's up a pawn. He's got better control of the center, and white's doing fantastic. Now, there's just one simple problem with this move. Instead of rook e1, white here, he had to guard the g4 square. He had to go h3, stopping any sort of bishop g4 nonsense. Now, after rook e1, look at this. Bishop to g4. And suddenly, that knight on f3 is being overloaded. The problem is after either bishop takes or knight takes, white must recapture with the g-pawn, and from there, black is going to have a huge attack against the white king with the damaged kingside pawn structure. Now, can white go, say, bishop e2 trying to defend? Well, he can, but in doing so, you lose the pawn on e4, and after, say, knight takes, rook takes, I mean, look at the difference in the quality of the pieces. All my pieces here on the 4th rank, the bishop backing them up, the queen and the rook about to back them up, versus all of the white pieces here, they're not doing anything really on the back rank. So that would be very good for black. Beyond that, if white went, say, rook e3, again, trying to defend on the f3 square, even there, I just take, and then white basically has to recapture with the rook, giving up the exchange. Again, if he goes g takes, you know, these open squares here on the king side are just too much. So white would have to recapture with the rook, but this honestly might be the best defense from white. At least here, he's technically defending. He's technically hanging on, because after the move h3 from white, as white played in the game, I mean, white here is blitzing out his moves. He's wasted 6 seconds so far to achieve virtually a losing position. I mean, yes, there is the, what do you call it? The increment. There's a 2-second increment in this game, so white gets an additional 2 seconds every time he makes one move. But still here, this move is just unacceptable, because here, you know, black can actually take with either the bishop or the knight in this position. Now, here, I took with the knight, but also bishop takes is also playable. The idea being bishop takes, g takes, and then knight to h5, the right idea. Setting up queen g5 ideas, knight f4 ideas, and so on. And black here is just crushing. But instead, in the game, we took with the knight. Knight takes, g takes, and then bishop takes h3 is the sequence. And here already, I regained the lost pawn, but beyond that, white's kingside is just so insanely weak, and white, he really can't defend. If white goes back with, say, bishop f1, I can actually ignore the threat on the bishop, and I can just go knight to h5, setting up queen g5 ideas, queen h4 ideas, and so on. That would be dangerous. Now, instead, in the game, we have the move knight to e2. White here trying to defend, the idea being perhaps knight g3, but I've got my ideas as well. Knight h5, knight g3, and here queen to g5. And it turns out this pawn on f2 is actually pinned by the bishop, and therefore queen takes g3 is actually a direct threat here that white has to respond to. And white here, he doesn't recognize the threat. He goes bishop f1, completely ignoring it. And here black has many ways to win effectively on the spot. Now, in the game, I actually don't take on g3 with the queen. Instead, I take with the knight. Knight takes g3. Then we have bishop takes h3. And now here, try to find, you know, the winning combination for black. There actually is effectively a checkmate in just a few moves here. And I basically find it. Pause the video if you have to. This move here by black is very cool. And of course, the idea I'm talking about, knight takes e4 with a discovered attack on the king with the queen. Now, white goes king to h2, but this loses effectively on the spot. Bishop takes. Now the threat is queen to g3 check, and then after king h1, queen perhaps, or actually, Queen takes h3 will be checkmate. So white here, he's got to defend somehow. Now, he does that by taking the knight on e4. Rook takes e4, but this is just too little too late. Queen g3, king to h1, and finally, queen takes h3 is going to be checkmate. That is how the game actually ended here. So very cool game. And by the way, if you're interested, this move in this position, knight d4, really is effectively the strongest move here for black. There are some lines you have to know, but if you can learn the lines, you can basically shut down white's attempts at an advantage right away. So to give you an overview of the ideas here, after knight d4, the most obvious idea from white is going to be capturing the pawn on the e5 square, but then you just go queen to e7, and from there, all the lines basically work out for black. Now, beyond that, if white takes on d4, that is no good at all. We take back here. We drive back this knight. Of course, that knight defends e4. If it moves, e4 falls as well. And the lines do get kind of complicated. For example, e5, d takes, e takes, queen takes, and so on. But overall, black is doing just fine in those lines as well. Now, what else can white do? Well, white can castle as he did in the game. But there, the easiest way to equalize here as black, you just take the bishop. White takes back, c6, knight c3, d6, and if white goes d4, queen to c7 is the move, and you're doing just fine. Now, off memory, what if white goes, say, bishop a4 or bishop c4? Those moves are a little bit trickier. If bishop to a4, the move here from black is actually going to be c6, intending a fast d5 potentially, and this move right here is necessary as with the bishop still on this diagonal, in this position, this pawn is pinned, therefore c6 is required to get rid of the pin. And from there, ideas like d5, bishop c5, queen e7, and so on are all playable. Black has a fantastic game. Now, finally, what if white goes bishop c4? In that case, I recommend bishop c5, actually ignoring the pawn on e5 again, giving white the option to capture it. And believe it or not, the lines do work out fantastic for black here. So overall, this move, knight d4, is just so strong in this position. So there are some lines you need to know, but if you can learn them, it basically shuts down bishop e5 immediately in the four knights, giving white basically nothing. And if he messes up, as he did in this game, he can get blown off the board so incredibly fast. So I highly recommend you try it out in your own games. All right, Chess YouTube, that is all for today. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, show me some love. Smash that YouTube like button. Comment down below what you thought of this video. And as always, I wish you the best of luck in your chess improvement journey in 2025 and beyond. And I'll see you in the next video.